gathered tonight. PSR now is strengthened by the participation of a distinguished individuals also long involved in the pursuit of the same goals. I'd also like to tell you about another physician, Raisuke Shirabe, who I happened to encounter not long after I arrived in Nagasaki with Aki and my 5-month-old son, Paul, and became my mentor, who became my mentor about the atomic bombing of Nagasaki. However, the climate of secrecy that prevailed during that period needs to be explained. A year earlier in 1948, when I was recruited to join the U.S. Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission, ABCC, to study the lifelong effects of the survivors from the bomb's radiation. My assignment in Washington at the National Academy of Sciences was to observe the surviving children and the outcome of the pregnant mothers, the effect on the fetuses. The potential genetic effects of radiation was a major consideration, so that examination of the newborn of parents exposed to the bomb involved the pediatricians. Yet, physicians joining the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commissions on Radiation Biology were not briefed about the medical effects of the bomb in Japan, conducted from October to December 1945 by the physicians of the U.S. Armed Forces, the Manhattan Project, and the Japanese Medical Group. So the report was initially classified by the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission, but eventually published 11 years later in 1956. Furthermore, soon as the Allied forces began the occupation of Japan, a press code was invoked to prohibit the publication of related injuries and illnesses. Thus, the Japanese were denied access to details of the atomic disaster until the signing of the San Francisco Peace Treaty in September of 1951 that brought an end to the press censorship. Meanwhile, in the United States, little effort to disseminate this information was made. Now resuming the narrative of my arrival in Hiroshima in September of 1949, 4 years later. A new assignment developed. I was instructed to go to Nagasaki as a sole American physician to develop rapport with the community, to develop a clinic and laboratory for the investigation of the lifelong effects among survivors already underway in Hiroshima. Soon the citizenry, feeling concerning the proposed commission's investigation, filtered to my office, informing me of their understanding that the purpose of the commission's investigation was solely to obtain information preparatory for any future atomic attack on American soil, but not out of any consideration for them. Thus, I sought the advice of the dean of the medical school, who introduced me to Dr. Raisuke Shirabe, the professor of surgery. He was present at the medical school on August 1945, when the atomic bomb attacked Urakami, the industrial valley of Nagasaki. He would be the liaison to the medical community and indeed became my mentor. At the deserted, gutted hospital buildings, looking through a window frame, Dr. Shirabe pointed to ground zero, 800 meters to the north. Then he pointed to the adjacent lot, empty except for the concrete footing of the wooden building. That was instantly ignited into a roaring fire and crushed by the blast. All of the students and faculty in the building perished and reduced to ashes. Among them was his son, a medical student. The people in the surrounding neighborhood met the same fate. The concrete hospital walls buckled, but partially shielded the occupants from the bomb's heat, blast, and radiation, that 60% of those in the building survived. So this was as close as you could get to the bomb and still survive. 70,000 lives were lost. 3 weeks later, Dr. Shirabe, fatigued from the unending care of the injured, responding to a family's request, walked an hour to the home of a dying patient. The next day, he was requested to attend a meeting to plan the restoration of the medical school, just 3 weeks after the bombing. Shortly thereafter, purple blotches developed on his arms that he had observed in other survivors prior to their dying. One of his medical students looking after him prevailed upon him to take an ethyl alcohol tasty drink he concocted. Telling me about his favorable response to the drink, he said, "Yamazaki-san, when you return to the United States, be sure and carry out studies of alcohol therapy to treat radiation sickness." I never got around to that study. Of his recovery, Dr. Shirabe, with his associates and medical students, conducted a survey of 8,000 survivors for the next 3 months that became one of the definitive contributions to the understanding of the acute medical effects of the atomic bomb. This report is the only atomic bomb casualty report that was published in the United States by someone from Japan. It was published in the U.S. medical journal Military Surgeon in 1953. When Dr. Shirabe convened a meeting for me to explain the ABC program to the medical faculty, at the last minute, he turned to me and said I should speak in Japanese and dismissed my interpreter. As I spoke, the distinguished professor's attentive demeanor turned into smiles, as they had probably never heard such a fractured version of the Japanese language. In a following meeting, the faculty, however, responded that they were just as concerned for the fate of the survivors proposed by ABCC, so a collaborative undertaking was initiated. Shirabe then organized a day-long symposium by the surviving staff of the medical college hospital for the ABC's physicians to tell us of their experience in the aftermath of the bombing on August 9, 1945. Concerned for the plight of the survivors, Shirabe implored the Diet for entitlement based on their experience, resulting in a classification card for the survivors, providing for their care. Now, in December, a 60 years summary of the continuing study of 100,000 survivors by the collaborative effort of Japanese and U.S. physicians was held at the National Academies in Washington, D.C., that provides the basic information of radiation effect in man. When the first atomic bomb was detonated in Alamogordo, New Mexico, on July 16, 1945, it was the largest man-made explosion in history, identical to the Nagasaki atomic bomb. Now the trim W-88 thermonuclear warhead of today has 20 times the power of the Nagasaki bomb, and several of these can be fitted into a single missile that can be independently targeted. Importantly, attention has been called to the enormity of the environmental